All right, I think we can get started. So, hello everyone. Well, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Ishan Persai. I am with the Greater Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce. So during this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an increase in racism and hate crime towards the ABA community. So today, it's our pleasure. We are inviting our speaker, Christian Mendoza, from the Austin Police Department to come and discuss how to handle racist incidents that might occur in your workplace or your business place. Earlier, I also talked to Christian about it. It can be individual when you go out to places, when you encounter the situation, how can you respond to the situation? So Christian will also be sharing some safety resources and actions in response to the situation. So at the end of this presentation, we will also leave some time for Q&A. So now I would like to hand it over to Christian. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody who's watching for your interest and your time. Special thanks to the Greater Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce for allowing this amazing opportunity here. And my thoughts and prayers go out to those affected by this pandemic at a health, housing, economic level, including our families and community members who have been affected through bias incidents or hate crimes. And that's going to be the whole purpose of this training, is to be able to kind of go through what can small businesses do, what can individuals do, what can the community do as a whole to ensure that these type of incidents and hate crimes are no longer happening, that we can address them and get help for those victims of these types of incidents. So you just kind of want to probably take about an hour or so. We'll talk about our APD Safe Place Initiative, the history of that program, a quick rundown of the history of our hate crime laws, which I think is critical for us to understand how they evolve over time. We'll talk about the difference between hate speech or a bias incident and a hate crime, along with the investigation by the Austin Police Department. Some of the do's and don'ts that small businesses or any kind of business can do when it comes to partnering with this initiative, and also some resources available to the community and including to those employees of these type of businesses. If there are any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to ask. I think you can also use the chat on this webinar to write your question, and I'll be able to address them as we go. At the very end, if you're a small business owner, but upon the completion of this training, you'll be able to receive these decals here, which again, we'll talk about pretty soon, that kind of conclude the training and become an APD Safe Place Initiative spot for your business. Okay, so let's begin. Make sure that we can get to these slides fairly good. Alrighty, just really quick, I want to say my name is Christian Mendoza. I am the LGBTQIA+ liaison for the Austin Police Department. My goal is to be able to bridge a gap between this community and law enforcement officers. Along with this title came the Safe Place Initiative Coordinator, which again, we'll talk about pretty soon. I've been with the department since 2008 as a volunteer and got fully employed with the department in 2018. So the Safe Place Initiative, the whole purpose of this initiative is to partner with businesses and nonprofit organizations to help victims of hate crimes. Now there's only two requirements of those businesses, and one is to call 911 on their behalf and to create a safe space for them on their business until police arrive. Now due to safety concerns, this initiative is not authorized for individual or residential use. Now the quick rundown of the history of this program started in the 1970s. Now, Jim Ritter, he is the current LGBTQIA+ liaison for the Seattle Police Department. He noticed that growing up in the 70s, there was a yellow hand decal program where if children walking to school or walking from school, if they felt in danger, they could go into that home and seek shelter or wait for police to arrive or for their parents to pick them up. Now, he was like, when he joined the department in 2014, he was like, hey, why not do this but help victims of hate crimes, specifically the LGBTQ+ community? Sure enough, in 2015, he started implementing this program. Within a year, cases grew drastically. People were coming forward, finally reporting their hate crimes. In 2018, he was like, hey, can we possibly include all other people protected under our hate crime laws, which that include, we'll talk about in a minute, we would include anybody else like religion, ethnicity, disability, and so on and so on. Finally, the Austin Police Department in 2018 decided to join this initiative. We're the only city in the state of Texas to join the Safe Place program, and the only one in the world to make it bilingual. So as you can see, we have our decals, English, Spanish, and we're hoping to this year get some of the few other decals in other languages like Vietnamese, Chinese, and Arabic, which those are the top 5 most spoken languages here in the city of Austin. Now this decal is fairly small. These go in all entrances accessible to the public, so people can see, or people walking by, they can notice these decals and know that that Safe Place location or your business is part of the Safe Place initiative. Now, these are some of the larger participating businesses that we have on board throughout the United States and that we're hoping to get here in the city of Austin, which would include T-Mobile, Wells Fargo, Chase, Starbucks, and so on. Now, here in Austin, we have so far 110 businesses that have signed up and gone through the training and are currently active Safe Place locations. And like you see on the screen, there are some of the ones that we have at the moment. Now, what is the hate crime? And I think this is really important for us to know the definition. Now, I'm gonna read it verbatim, and it's a criminal offense against a person or property. Now, it doesn't have to be just a person. It can be your car, it can be your house, it can be a place of worship. Motivated in whole or in part by an offender's bias against an actual or perceived. Doesn't have to be like what you identify. If the suspect thinks or perceives you as this type of one of these classes, that falls under a hate crime law. And that includes race, color, national origin, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender, and gender identity. Now, over the past couple of months, we've seen an increase in bias incidents and hate crimes against our Asian Pacific American community due to the pandemic. Now the Austin Police Department investigates every kind of situation to the fullest extent. And we're here to partner with community members and businesses to ensure that we send a message to everyone in the city that we're not gonna tolerate these type of bias incidents or hate crimes, and that the suspects are gonna be held accountable to the fullest extent. Next on, as far as hate crimes, these are some of the offenses that can be kind of classified as hate crimes, which would include assault, intimidation, and vandalism. Those are the top 3 that we get here in the city of Austin and actually throughout the United States. Assault can be assault by contact, assault by threat. Somebody tells you like, hey, I am going to kill you, or I'm going to physically harm you at this time or at this day or time. Vandalism, which you definitely see at places of worship, houses, and intimidation. Those are some of the major cases that we get, along with aggravated assault, rape, burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, robbery, human trafficking, and murder, to name a few. Now, I want to talk about a bias incident versus a hate crime. A bias incident, what we kind of consider a hate speech, it is falls under non-criminal situations. That pretty much is not what I just talked about. Now, for this one right here, just like you can see on the PowerPoint, bias incidents are where a subject uses offensive or derogatory words at a particular person or group during constitutionally protected free speech. And that it is not accompanied by direct threats or actions. Now, this is extremely, extremely hard. It's a big gray line when it comes to enforcement by law enforcement, because there are certain things that we are protected under the First Amendment or freedom of speech. Now, like I said on that definition right there, offensive derogatory words at someone is not necessarily a crime. So this definitely requires examination on a case-by-case basis. The only difference, once it becomes a crime, it is when there is a direct threat or action committed towards a person or particular group. That is when a law enforcement can take action. Just a few things to kind of keep in mind when it comes to these type of situations is that if a suspect is in the process of committing another crime, for example, a robbery or a burglary of your home, and calls the victim by a derogatory term or name, it does not automatically mean that it is a hate crime. So like I said, this requires a case-by-case basis, and the detectives dedicated to investigating hate crimes here at the Austin Police Department, they look at the totality of the circumstances and see, yes, is it possibly a hate crime, or no, we're just going to charge the suspect based on the crime that they committed, for example, robbery, theft, or burglary. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is that if the incident was a crime, but it was not believed to be motivated by your status, it would still be followed up to the fullest extent as far as the investigation goes. It just won't have that hate crime charge added to the suspect. Also, kind of keep in mind, just go to the next slide real quick for y'all. Also, if the incident is not found to be a crime, either a hate crime or any of the crimes that I talked about, there's often not too much law enforcement can take. And just like I said a few minutes ago, now that doesn't mean that what happened to you was right. We're not going to tolerate these type of incidents. Now, there's also an option of bringing a civil cause of action against the suspect. For example, lawsuits and so on that oftentimes constable's office, they can assist you with. And also, it is really important that if you feel that there was a direct threat or people keep yelling derogatory terms towards you or your family or particular group, and it's oftentimes by the same offender, that you report these type of incidents to law enforcement, whether you live in Austin, Cedar Park, Round Rock, or the surrounding Central Texas cities, because law enforcement officers, they can definitely start writing reports and can eventually build up a case of possible harassment or other charges that can be brought to that suspect. So again, just because you see something doesn't mean the law enforcement can take action. Yes, you can have somebody write a report for it. You can call 911. You can call 311, our non-emergency line, and have a report generated for that case. That way, in the event that the suspect can be tied to other type of incidents or crimes, again, a law enforcement can build up a case against that individual. Any questions so far as as the definition between a hate incident or hate speech and a hate crime?
If you have any questions, there's a Q&A box. You can type it in, and or you can raise your hand. I will allow you to talk.
Yeah, so I think that I see here on our little boxes, I would like to know how serious the situation is. Is there any going up amount of report on hate crimes or violence incidents against Haitians or any statistics? That is a great question. Now, as far as statistics, we'll talk about them a little bit more later down the presentation. But yes, there has been an increase in hate incidents and hate crimes against, and particularly against the Asian community. And again, shortly we'll talk about who investigates these types of crimes and when all these statistics will be released to the public later on. But yes, there is an increase, and there's still detectives and law enforcement officers who are investigating these type of incidents. Another one is we're hearing more incidents, but don't have stats. Temple on North Lamar was vandalized recently. Yes, unfortunately, that, like I said, places of worship, they tend to be targeted a lot here in Austin. In a minute, again, we'll talk about those statistics. And hopefully kind of answer those questions for y'all. Alrighty, so what is the purpose of hate crime laws? What do they do? At the end of the day, they simply enhance the charge for the suspect, and they're enhancement tools for state and federal prosecutors. When was the first time that the U.S. had hate crime laws? So I just kind of let you think and kind of reflect, and see if you know. But the first time that the U.S. had hate crime laws was in 1968, and that was under the Title I of the Civil Rights Act. Now, the thing about this law, again, this is just a quick history, is that it was passed by Congress and signed by President LBJ. Now, it only protected people based on race, color, religion, and national origin, and that was it. And people had to be participating in one of these 6 federal protective activities, which included education, voting, jury duty, employment, public accommodations, and travel. But that was it, and that was in 1968. Now, this gentleman here, I'm not sure if anybody recognizes him, but his name is Matthew SHEPPARD. Now, he was a gay college student in Wyoming. He ended up dying. He got attacked because of his sexual orientation, because he was gay. Now, did Wyoming have a hate crime law in 1998? It did not. Now, this gentleman right here is closer to home. He is James Byrd Jr. He was killed in Jasper, Texas. He was attacked because he was an African-American or black male, and he was attacked by white supremacists. Now, did Texas have a hate crime law in 1998? Yes and no. I say that because It did in 1993, but it wasn't really enforced. People didn't know about it in 1998. Now, finally, in 2001, Governor of Texas, Rick Perry, he passed the JASPER Junior Hate Crimes Act. And now this is really important here for Texas because of this act that passed. This is the current definition that we use here in Texas as far as investigating hate crimes. In a minute, we'll talk about the definition, okay? Now, in 2000, Matthew Shepard, JASPER Junior Hate Crimes Prevention Act. This is critical in 2008. Why? Because it added gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability to our hate crime laws. Now, also, President Obama and Congress, they were like, hey, why do people need to be participating in federal activity in order to be protected? We'll get rid of that, and we'll also give money to local and state authorities to help investigate these type of incidents. Now, how many states do not have a hate crime law? Just kind of let you think about that, if you have an idea about how many states. And we have 4 states, okay? So we have this one here. I'm not sure how good anybody is for geography, but if anybody can guess, we have that one right there, one of our states. That is Arkansas, still has no hate crime laws. We have this one right here, which it is Georgia, no hate crime law. This one right here, South Carolina. And the last one, Wyoming, which it is shocking given the fact what happened in 1998. Now, this definition right here, it is extremely important here for us in Texas, which applies to Austin as well. Now I want to read the definition verbatim as well. It is a criminal offense against a person or property. Again, there goes that. It doesn't have to be just a person being physically attacked or direct threats. It can also be their property, which includes what we talked about, your car, house, place of worship. And the suspect attacked you in whole or in part because of their bias against your actual or perceived race, color, national origin, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender, age, or your status as a peace officer or judge. Now here we added 3 things. We added age, which again, at a federal level, we don't, there's not protected class, but here in Texas we do, we include age. So if somebody attacks you because you know you're under the age of 10 or because you're over the age of 60, that can also be a hate crime. Or your status as a peace officer or judges, we also protect them as well. Okay, let me go to the next one. A quick statistics, US as a whole. In 2017, the FBI, they released their latest report, and they said that hate crimes have been on the rise by 17%, and that is the 3rd year in a row. Now, race, 60% of the victims were targeted the most. Now, within race, we have Blacks and the Latinx community who were targeted the most as far as hate crimes. Second, we have religion, 20% of the victims, which that included Jewish and Muslims. And third, we have sexual orientation, that was 60% of the victims. Now, as you can see through that graph right there, that's where our hate crime levels have been throughout time from 2007 all the way to 2018. Now, people have asked, you know, why do people commit hate crimes? And oftentimes, you know, there's so many possible answers to that. And when I ask people, you know, in an open and safe environment, you know, if I'm honest, you know, people say it's political views. Oftentimes, what we have in people that we have in power, the platform that they give people to make it, you know, right and just and not address it. And oftentimes, that is what leads to people committing these type of horrendous incidents and hate crimes. Now, statistics here in Austin. I just want to mention 2 things. One is that Austin is one of the top 8 large safest cities in the nation. Kind of keep that in mind. And 2 is that we're one of 16 law enforcement agencies that reports to the FBI our hate crime statistics. So as you can see, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of cities that don't report, which can lead to that underreporting of hate crimes. So let's look at these quick statistics here. In 2014, there were 4 that were fully investigated and sent to our county attorney or district attorney. In 2015, 14, followed by 17, 17, 18, and last year we had 12. So there was that kind of decrease in hate crimes. Now for 2020, we will not have those statistics until the end of the year. But in a minute, I'll talk about who is investigating them month by month basis. and so on. Okay, so let me see. So why do people report hate crime? This is really, really important to know. Oftentimes, the lack of education, people don't know what a hate crime is or the definition of it. They also think that it doesn't meet the parameters of that definition. They're like, well, this happened to me, but I'm not exactly sure that I can file a report or that it's not going to do anything. They don't think that police will take them seriously. That is a big one, right? Oftentimes with what has happened over time, the trust gap between law enforcement and minorities, that can lead to that. Fear of retaliation, possibly by the suspect. They might know the suspect, or they might know, they might associate the suspect with a larger group of people, and they're fear for their life. And also cultural differences. Especially when working with my community, the LGBTQ plus community, is that, hey, I'm coming from a country where being part of this community is a crime itself. So you're telling me that if I go to police and report, it's gonna be fine? No, I'm not gonna go report, right? So oftentimes there is that, or oftentimes law enforcement in countries where they're coming from, law enforcement is not the best interaction that they've had with. So coming to the United States and going forward towards law enforcement, they're hesitant, they're fearful, they don't wanna do it. We wanna send a message that the Austin Police Department, they're not gonna care about your immigration status, they're not gonna care where you're coming from or so on. They're solely here to help you investigate what happened to you and provide you with plenty of resources available to you. In a minute, so this is really important right here. Our APD hate crime review team, not every single law enforcement agency in the state of Texas has one of these. Now here at the Austin Police Department, we have a group of people dedicated to investigating hate crimes. Now, they meet once a month, and it's about 9 people, both sworn and civilian, meaning that they have a lieutenant, 2 detectives, and civilians. They also have a victim service counselor. They have record analysts, employees who they review these cases. So again, it's not just law enforcement or sworn officers, also civilians on this side. And they're the ones that every time an officer goes to a scene and the officer believes that it was potentially a hate crime, that officer will write a full report thoroughly and write down everything that the victim or witnesses said or the suspect said in the report. Now that officer will flag that report as a potential hate crime. That way this committee can review that case and determine, yes, does it meet the elements of a hate crime? Can we tell the district attorney or the county attorney to investigate as a hate crime? Now you might be thinking, well, what if the officer forgets to flag that report, right? Or what if the officer believes like, you know what, it's possibly not a hate crime, we're not gonna flag it. Well, this team has the ability to key in certain derogatory terms or words in a database, and every single report that has those words, derogatory terms, will come up to the front of the line, and that committee will be determined, yes, oh, actually, you know what, this report didn't have the flag, let's pull it this way, let's review it. So like I said, this team is dedicated solely to investigating hate crimes. Any questions so far about this team or what I talked about? Okay, so let's proceed with the next one. So now let's talk about the Safe Place Initiative. So this is particularly for business owners. So where should that safe place be, right? Once you participate with the Safe Place Initiative, where can that safe place be? It is going to be on a case-by-case scenario. Preferably, we tell people away from entrances. Oftentimes, a victim will come in, right? If something that just happened to them, they don't want to be near the door. So if you have a private room, perfect. You know, set that victim right there, away from the windows, away from the door, and that create that safe space for them. Now, what if your business doesn't have a private room or any extra rooms, and the only thing you have is the lobby, and there's doors right there? We tell people, hey, if you can create a physical barrier between the door and the victim, that can help. Again, something what you might think as small can be big for that victim who just went through a traumatic event. If you have 2 employees, perfect, please be with the victim. Why? Again, which hopefully doesn't happen, but to prevent cases where the victims say that you as a business owner or your employees sexually abuse or further committed a crime against this victim.
Christian, we have one question coming from our attendees. It's from Loda. Her question is that I know that reporting is the most safest way to handle this situation, But what if it's an emergency? When people are really facing, they might being killed at that second. So how do they respond to that emergency situation?
Yes, if I'm understanding the question correctly, incidents where the victim is possibly being killed, correct? And there's some like bystanders on the side?
Yes, just emergency situation, like life and death situation. How do people respond to that way?
Yes, and those kind of extreme situations here in Texas, people have the right to defend themselves, right? So if there are, they have the right to defend themselves. But if they have no way to defend themselves based on, their stature or just who they're facing, oftentimes what we tell people is one, call 911 immediately if you have a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone or they're chasing you, is to one, run and seek help as fast as you can, or you start screaming. That is the biggest thing, to start screaming, because once you start screaming, it starts attracting people. They're seeing like, what is all that commotion going on over there? I hear people screaming. Or if it's outside your apartment, let's say the witness or the person living on the other side of the apartment, they don't feel comfortable going outside. Hopefully they can call 911. Or if this happens to you, you hear yelling outside, you don't feel comfortable going outside, we recommend you to call 911 immediately and say like, hey, I'm hearing screaming outside, possibly a female, possibly a male. I hear 2-3 voices. This is what I'm hearing. Again, if you don't feel comfortable going outside, because the call taker or the dispatcher might ask you, hey, can you go outside and get more information? If you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel comfortable. But simply calling 911, that is going to get officers to start responding towards your address or towards this vicinity or where you're reporting that incident happening. So that is really, really important. Again, aside from starting to screaming or yelling, that is going to grab people. People are going to come forward and hopefully help. If they don't feel comfortable, they can start recording. And again, with people having cell phones nowadays, they can record incidents and say like, yes, we captured the suspect or the suspects potentially beating the victim or committing a hate crime. That is going to be evidence used in the court or for the prosecutor and so on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, did that address that question about extreme cases or immediate kind of threats, right?
Yes, that's a good question, and thank you for that.
Alrighty. And medical emergencies, oftentimes we see that, right? You come across, whether it's your business or on the street, somebody would just attack. What in those kind of situations is to one, call 911 again immediately. You want to get EMS en route to help that victim. Now, if you feel comfortable performing CPR or using AED, we highly recommend it. But if not, simply calling 911, that is going to expedite one, EMS to arrive on scene, and two, whoever's on the line, the dispatcher for EMS, they're actual paramedics who can guide you through the process on how to provide first aid for that victim if you feel comfortable. So oftentimes people don't know this, that if you call EMS or fire, it's an actual firefighter, an actual paramedic on the line, and they can be able to assist you or guide you through the process on how to provide first aid for that victim. The Texas Good Samaritan law, that protects you too, right? Let's say we're trying to help a victim and doing CPR or acting in good faith that we're trying to save that victim. People are scared, like, well, what if they sue me? They create a lawsuit. Well, as long as you're acting in good faith, our Texas law protects you. That is extremely important to know. Also, physical disturbances. This is really important, right? We might see somebody being attacked, whether it's a family member, our friends, or just a complete stranger. If they're being physically attacked, first thing you should do is to call 911. Again, that is really critical and important so that law enforcement can start going en route to your location. Calling 911. If you don't have a cell phone, yell or run to seek help or start screaming, somebody call 911, somebody call 911. Again, we want to get that help as soon as possible. If there are physical fights, right? And you feel like it is a dead situation, and you feel comfortable in intervening that physical fight, you are encouraged to stop that fight. But again, if you don't feel comfortable, do not intervene, simply call 911. As a business owner, we're asking you to not violate your store's protocols or policies. If they tell you that to do these kind of things in these kind of situations, follow those. That should be a priority. Now, question for business owners, can you lock the door of your business? Yes, you can. You have the authority here in Texas to protect your property and your business as well. So yes, you can lock the door to your business. Now, can you prevent a victim from leaving? No. If the victim or any of the patrons of your business, they want to leave, you need to let them leave because that can carry some repercussions for you as well. And just a few more slides for y'all. While waiting for police, let's say, again, it can be a business, it can be outside, it can be outside your home. While waiting for police, we ask that you prevent, you don't physically touch the victim. Why? For several reasons. One, there might be possible evidence left behind with the victim. You don't want to be able to disturb that evidence. Two, somebody who just went through a traumatic event. Somebody is simply going like this, like, hey, it's going to be okay. They're already going through a traumatic event. You might be re-victimizing that victim. So again, try not to touch that, try to minimize that physical contact with the victim, and do not share any personal information about the victim on social media or so on, which I think a lot of business owners, they have that pretty well as far as privacy goes. Now, what if it's closing time, right? Let's say that there's somebody waiting on your location or your business and it's 9 o'clock and police haven't arrived. What can you do in those kind of situations? There's a few things that you can do is to, one, keep waiting with the victim until police arrive. Well, what if you have an emergency yourself? You have to go, you have kids, you have a flight to catch, it's an emergency. In those kind of situations, there's not much that you can do. You know, simply call 911 and saying like, hey, I'm a business owner, I'm an employee with this business, police haven't arrived, can you tell us what is the status of that officer, how long is it going to take to they get here? The victim is going to be waiting outside. Again, it's going to be a hard decision to make. If the victim can go to a different location that is potentially open, like a hospital or a pharmacy that is 24/7, perfect. Call 911. Hey, this victim is not going to be at this location. Have officers respond to this address instead of mine. That is extremely critical. Now, if it's taking officers a long time to respond, most of the time it's going to be because of there's other higher priority calls. We're not trying to minimize what happened to the victim, but there's just other higher priority calls in the queue for those officers. In these kind of situations where they're like, hey, maybe this happened to the victim last year, 10 years ago, a week ago, but they're not injured or anything, they can also potentially report these type of incidents online. And I think I have a slide here of that website right there at ireportaustin.com. Again, if you don't want an officer to respond to where you're at physically, you can also report online. And if you go to this website, just like you can see at the very bottom of right here, it says submit a report, and be able to guide you through the process of who can report online. And this can be, for example, assault by threats, saying like, hey, I hate you because of who you are. Tomorrow, I'm going to go hurt you. Again, these are assault by threats. If the person believes that that person is in fear for their life, or the suspect can potentially commit that crime at the moment. Also, you need to talk to someone, whether it's the victim or you as the business owner. We have our victim services or our crisis team for the Austin Police Department, that they're available to help you. Now, they're the ones that have plenty of resources available at their disposal. They'll be able to connect you with different organizations to be able to assist the victim, whether it's monetary assistance, housing, counseling, and so on. There are free resources to that victim or you as the business owner. And that is that. Any questions so far?
Thank you, Christian. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we have another question.
Okay.
So the question is, I know 311 is also used for reporting. Is there any differences between 311 and 911 to report hate crime or bias incident?
Yes, we tell people, our 911 is our emergency line, 311 is not an emergency line, right? So for example, like, hey, there's a line that is out on Palmer Lane and 35. I want to call 311, right? Versus like, hey, there's a car accident, call 911. In situations where you don't know, like, hey, I should call 311, 911, call 911. Always call 911, because then they can just simply direct you toward to 311. Now for 311, these are reports that you can definitely do, right? Whether it was a collision or a minor collision that happened a while back, or it's a report that's happened to you last week or a month ago and there's no need for medical assistance, you can call 311. They will either direct you towards the police side, or they can generate a report for you, take your information down, and the detective will eventually talk to you, call you on the cell phone or email, and give you your side of the story so you can kind of get an investigation started for you or the victim. So like I said, if you don't know what to do, always call 911, tell them what's going on, and they might possibly direct you to 311 where they can generate that report.
Okay, thank you, Christian. I also want to point out that Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce, we are also supporting this effort on reporting racism. So we also have a website page. So if you or someone around you, if they encountered a situation, we are also a part of this too. Christian also mentioned at the website that you can also report it on the APD website. So let's see. So yeah, so does anyone have any questions? Alrighty, well, thank you so much, Christian. Also, thank you for the support that you have for the community, because I know it's really important to have you to come and talk about this topic. Also, after this webinar, there will be an online evaluation form. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. There's two things I also like to point out. We have upcoming event this Friday, is our networking event. It's a virtual networking event and featured wine and Indian cuisine. We also have another webinar on next Thursday, and the topic will be on marketing to APAs. So yes, that's it. All right, thank you so much for all your participation. Thank you, Christian, again.
Yes, and before I go, if I may, I think I saw a question right here. Okay. I think it's about the PowerPoint. Yes, I think Deshaun has a copy of this PowerPoint. You're more than happy to keep a copy of this PowerPoint. Like I said, if you're a business owner and you went through this training right here, please email me like you can see on the screen right there. This will supply the training for the Safe Place Initiative. I'll be able to go to your business, drop these decals off so that you can start participating as soon as possible. And one last thing, I want to be able to tell that we have May. She's our age. I think she's participating right now in our chat or in this webinar. She's a great resource. She's our Asian liaison for the Austin Police Department. Her information is on our website. If you want me to connect you via email with her, please email me and I'll be able to connect both of y'all. But again, she's our Asian liaison for the Austin Police Department, and she is a great resource and asset for all of y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I hope y'all have a great week. I will distribute the PowerPoint to all the attendees today. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.